You're
On
listening
the
to On the
way.
DL, where we only gonna keep it real.
Keep it real.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I had to burp. Hey y'all, it's Dom.
And I'm Lex, and you're listening on the DL, where we only gonna keep it real.
So in our generation, there's been like a plethora of artists um, that we've grown up listening to, that we've grown up watching, that now it's been recently uncovered that they've just done like a lot of grimy and treacherous things.
Mm.
Um, and so one artist that touched me specifically was Bill Cosby. And so, for those of you who do not know, Bill Cosby was accused and imprisoned due to raping several women and using a lot of date rape drugs. And I grew up watching the Bill Cosby Show and
Yeah.
Fat Albert, and all of those things were just like embedded in my childhood. So it was really rough for me to be like, dang, like, not Bill, not Dr.
Yeah.
Huxtable. And so it was really, it was really difficult for me to wrap my mind around.
Yeah. I would have to agree. Like initially, I'm like when it first came out, I was like, "Ain't no way! Like this cannot
Yeah.
be true." Like that was my initial reaction. Um, and I guess like the main thing that I have been seeing, like people talk about, and what we are going to talk about today is like how it can be difficult. Like when you do grow up watching somebody like that, like how does that work? Like you stop watching them? Do you stop?
Mm.
I guess supporting their art, quote unquote. Separating the art from the artist is what the argument is. So like, where is your stance on that? Because it is difficult when you grew up watching something. Like you become emotionally attached almost to that.
So what's crazy is in one of my classes we actually talked about this,
Oh, really?
and yeah, I don't even know, it was a queer theories class, so I don't even know how we ended up getting on the topic, but it's a difficult answer. And I only say that
Mm,
because using R. Kelly, for example,
mm,
um, R. Kelly's, been accused of, having sex dungeons and taking advantage of young girls. A lot of people remember that he married Aaliyah when she was just like 14 or 15. So, like, his
yeah.
rep sheet is pretty long. And so, when things started being uncovered about him, I would then go back and listen to his music. And it was like all of these hidden gems of who he really was
Mm,
inside of his music, because after Surviving R. Kelly came out, R. Kelly's music like went up in streams because people was like, "Nah, I have to go back and listen to some of my favorite songs to see if this is what he's really talking about." And so in that case, it's difficult because him singing background in Aaliyah's song "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number." Yeah, fool, you out here messing with 13-year-olds,
right.
and
See, I didn't
so
know that.
yes, and so it's difficult in that sense because I can't listen to R. Kelly without immediately thinking he's talking about a little girl. And then that
Mm,
just doesn't make sense for me. But then things like Bill Cosby, like I grew up listening to R. Kelly, but it really wasn't a like inherent part of my childhood,
yeah.
So now I just don't listen to R. Kelly at all, which is fine. Like I'm not losing anything. But then when it comes to like people like Bill Cosby, or even if we talk about, Kanye West and him saying some of the slanderous things he said
Mm,
about slavery or about Harriet Tubman not really helping Black people, it's like Kanye West knows better, Bill Cosby knows better, but they were both inherently a part of my experience. Like I can listen to a Kanye West song and think like, oh, I was in this grade at this time when this song
right.
dropped, and I can smell glue and Crayola. Like it's just
Mm,
nostalgic for me. And the same thing with Bill Cosby. I don't know if it's possible to truly separate the two.
as in, so you're saying you don't know if it's possible to separate him and his mistakes from his
Right.
show.
Exactly, because it's R. Kelly, the artist, and then it's Robert, the terrible person. But
Mm,
ultimately, they're the same people.
mm,
Two different kinds of folks. We're getting two different versions of you, but they're the same person. And for me, I
yeah.
think that now I'm not going to sit here and tell you that once everything came out about Bill Cosby, I stopped watching Bill Cosby show because I did not. And
Yeah.
then after a week of watching it, I felt really bad about
Really?
myself, and so I just completely stopped.
Mm.
But I don't know. It's a lot of different gray areas because you want to, because a lot of, I mean, to be realistic, for R. Kelly not to know how to read or write, he developed some dope music.
Mm.
For Bill Cosby to come from where he comes from, he created some really good content.
I have a
So it's
question. So
just
do you think that is different because, and this might be a dumb question, but like I feel like it's different when it comes to actors that are characters and someone who's like themselves in their music. Do you know what I mean? Do you think
yeah,
it is different in that way? Because I feel like with Bill Cosby, like even though like that's him, but he's also acting. And then R.
right.
Kelly, he's just singing that's himself. Like, do you think there's a difference in like separating in that way, like whether it's easy or not, or you know?
Yes and no. Yes,
Because it's kind of like you
because
fall in love with the character rather than the person.
right. And the only reason I say that is because, well, both men in their own right played, like, had a huge hand in putting out whatever content that they
Right.
developed. R. Kelly, I'm almost certain, wrote and produced a lot of his own music.
Hmm.
So a lot of those songs are strictly from his mind, you know? Bill
Right.
Cosby wrote and produced a lot of those
Oh
shows and
yeah, that's
cartoons.
true.
And so a lot of that is, although they're characters, it's stuff that like
Came from
manifested
him.
itself in his brain first
Right.
before it was actually produced. So yes and no.
You're right. That
But
makes sense.
I think that we view it a lot differently. Like for R. Kelly, it's like, oh yeah, no, but it's like Bill Cosby is like, that ain't Bill, that's Dr. Hustable right now. That ain't
Right.
Bill, that's Fat Albert right now. So
Right.
it's really difficult.
Yeah, I
What do
agree.
you think? How do you what's your stance? Do you think we can truly separate the art from the artist?
Um, I feel like it depends, and that also depends on, I guess, the severity of the mistakes that the artists have made too.
Yeah.
Um, like you said, for R. Kelly, like I do remember like listening to his music, and hearing certain songs growing up, but he wasn't like just a prominent part of my childhood. So whenever it came out, I was just like, oh, he was always kind of weird to me, but okay. Like it wasn't really nothing, it didn't
Right.
really affect me anyway. But like Will Cosby, like I was hurt. Like I was like, this cannot. I'm gonna be like completely honest. For a long time, I didn't think it was true
Mm,
until everything happened and more people came forward, and then he was actually
right.
proven guilty, and then he went to jail. And so, um, for me, like I had to come into terms and like accept that, like, okay, this is what it is. Like it happened, and he made the decision, and what can you
Yeah.
do? Like it happened. Um,
Right.
how did you? How was your reaction? Did you see? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on her name right now. Whenever she tweeted something about him being released, his the coach
Felicia
or Felicia
Rashad.
Rashad, yes, I'm not thinking her name.
Yeah. She got, I don't remember what she said verbatim, but
It
it
was
was
like
something along the lines of like
finally,
standing, yeah, like finally you're home, and a wrong has been
right,
righted or
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
along those lines. And she received
much
so much
backlash.
backlash. But it's like, what, because for her, she probably felt the same way initially. Like, I know him. Like, it
Yeah,
can't be true. And she still feels the same way because I'm sure they got to know each other really well during their,
yeah,
time on the show together. It's just, it's so hard because you want to be like, you know, you can't deny that what he added to the African American culture during that time was needed. He was
yeah.
one of the first shows on television that showed a black family that wasn't poverty stricken,
Mhm.
that wasn't poor. Both parents were doing extremely well. They raised really good kids. And so you saw them, and you're like, wow, this is such a good show. But then it's like, I don't, it's just so hard because I like, that really struck a nerve with me. I was like, not Bill, not Bill.
Yeah.
But then it makes me, then I had to go back and be like, all right, Dominique, you're a woman first. And so trying to understand what a lot of those women had went through. It's
Mm,
like, yeah, regardless of who he is and what his stature was at the time, it still wasn't right.
yeah.
So
Having to basically. hold him accountable for that.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it's just unfortunate. I just wish it wasn't. I really do.
yeah. I just, yeah, just like a power thing. Because I mean, needless to say, both Bill, R. Kelly, other prominent figures like Kanye sit in really high places and with some really big
Mm,
people. So naturally, they have a lot of power. And so I can only imagine how much of that power they used
right.
and abused to get what they wanted. It's extremely unfortunate, but I think that as people and specifically as Black people, we have to start recognizing a lot of those red flags. Like
Yeah.
somewhere in somebody's family, y'all have an uncle that's a little sketchy like R. Kelly is. And
Right.
you let it slide because that's your uncle. Like I
Right.
know Leroy. Leroy ain't like that. He just a little weird. Nah, Leroy a pedophile.
Yeah. For real.
Leroy like little girls.
Right.
And so I
I
just
think
think
that
like,
has a lot to do with like
yeah,
I think we put people whether that's celebrities or family members, we put people on these pedestals, and when they do something that isn't, upholding that authority or whatever that figure is that we have in our minds of them, it's like it's hard to take them down off that pedestal because it's hard to believe some
right.
of the things that they would do. So
But honestly, as I've gotten older, it's like starting to be a little weird to me how much we've been obsessed with the lives of celebrities without
mm,
like actually realizing they're just regular
regular
people that
people,
just happen to be rich. Like that's just always like you have, you know, companies and people whose jobs is dedicated to being in other folks' business. Like that just don't make sense to me.
yeah.
Like you get paid to be weird and take pictures of people. Like,
This is off topic, but did you see that video and the reporters outside of Kanye house asking? Did you see that? People really get paid to do that outside of
yes,
his
and
house
they
at
make
4 a.m. talking about, did you hear
depending
the Drake
on
album?
exactly, and depending on who the celebrity is, you can make a lot of money,
That's
like a
crazy.
whole lot.
I would hate to be a
When you
celebrity.
went to go see Rod Wave, you should have took some pictures and tried to sell them. You could have probably got some money for them on World Star or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always been weird. But I don't know if that. I think that's a really difficult question. I mean, there are a lot of people, even like thinking about Michael Jackson
I was just thinking about
and
that. I'm
and
thinking of somebody
how
else too.
his talent is undeniable. Undeniable. On this earth without hearing at least one Michael Jackson song and
Hmm.
bobbing your head like, man, this is good. But it's like, and I think that why this question, this topic is so up in the air for a lot of people is because a lot of people are like, well, we don't know whether or not it's true. Maybe they're just trying to get some money out of him and get some things from his estate, or
Yeah.
maybe so. Then a lot of people are skeptical, so they're like, no, it's not true. But then that puts a lot of I can only imagine what that does to the victims of a lot of, these crimes that have happened. It's like,
Mm,
well, if you don't believe me, then what do I even come forward for? Because it has to be a lot more detrimental. Sure, there may be a monetary aspect to it, but these are their lives. No one willingly is going to accuse somebody knowing that their life could also be destroyed. Because I mean, there
yeah.
are some diehard R. Kelly fans, some diehard Michael Jackson fans, and a lot of their victims have gotten like death threats, like "How dare you? You should have kept your
Right.
mouth shut," and just crazy stuff like that. Like I wouldn't want to put myself through that.
Yeah. That's true. So do you think? Because I'm thinking about like cancel culture. That's a big thing going on right now too, and that kind of
Mm,
aligns with this. So it's like, where do you find the line between like this is who that person is, or this is a mistake that they made? So, for example, we're thinking about R. Kelly, and he had multiple
mhm.
victims versus Chris Brown, and he beat Rihanna that one time. So it's like, where do you find that line of like, okay, this person is canceled. This is the person that they truly are, versus giving celebrities the space to make mistakes. Like how I don't know.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
That's a good question. I think what separates the two is accountability
Yeah.
and whether or not it's a pattern. So like Chris Brown and Rihanna was just one isolated incident.
Right.
And then, Chris Brown came, he apologized.
Apologize.
Years
Right.
later, he did a documentary explaining what happened, apologized again, and he did his time and accepted responsibility for what happened. Versus R. Kelly, there are multiple, not just one young lady came forward. There are multiple young ladies who came forward, saying that this was consistently happening, and then you do an interview with Gail, and you continue to deny it instead of
Right.
saying, yeah, you know what, it was wrong. And I think
And
that
I
that's
think
what separates the two. Like
I
Chris
think
Brown did one bad thing. R. Kelly
yeah.
did like several bad things
Right.
and couldn't recognize that it was a problem.
Right. And I think Bill Cosby, I could be mistaken, but I don't know if he ever confessed or not either.
Mm-mm.
Mm, I think so.
And he's still maintaining his innocence. Even now that he's out, he made some tweet and he was like, thank you to everyone for standing by me, who knows me and knows that this isn't true. So that's wild.
Yeah.
But I
Crazy.
think cancel culture is like full of crap. Because if you
Yes.
really think about it, nobody's ever been completely canceled.
Yeah.
Kanye West, he pissed off a lot of people.
Yeah.
He said slavery was a choice. He pissed off a lot of people. And
Right.
everybody was like, we're going to cancel him. We're not listening to Ye
And they
anymore.
still hyping up his album now.
His album just released and it's tons of streams, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I think that we should stop with cancel culture and then just start holding people accountable. And I think that
Go
that's what
further
the difference
action.
is. You
Right.
can't say somebody's canceled and you still bumping their music when ain't nobody around.
Right.
That kind of defeats the purpose. You putting money in their pocket.
Right.
Instead, hold them accountable. And I think that that's what a lot of people did with R. Kelly. Now, granted, people still listen to R. Kelly, but so the documentary came out, streams went up because everybody needed to go listen and figure out what exactly he was saying in those songs. He released another song and didn't make any money off of it.
Oh, really?
Because wasn't nobody interested.
Right.
You kind of sort of trifling. So
Yeah.
when nobody really
Basically.
interested. And so I think that that's what holds them, hitting them in a way that hits their pockets is what makes a huge difference. Because even if we look at the baby as an example,
I was about to
he
say.
said what he said on stage, and then after that, multiple shows that he was booked for all dropped him from the lineup. They hit him in a way that hurt his pockets. Now he's sitting down with, HIV and AIDS organizations to get educated. It's holding him accountable and forcing him to learn. And so I think that that's what the difference is.
Right.
Because folks care about their money.
So do. They ain't gonna
But
play
I mean,
about that.
and I'm not even going to say the name, but people watching this are going to know. Even universities that have, several civil rights lawsuits against them, if you start hitting them in a way that hurts their pockets, it's going to force them to take accountability.
Yep.
You and I know.
Yes.
But it's going to force them to take accountability. So I think that if we start hitting them in ways that hurt their pockets, then it's like,
right.
What I said was really wrong. And if they can genuinely sit there and understand, it's like,
right. Yeah, I totally agree. It's just one of those things, like, but then I think for me, like, also, what instances, like the baby Chris Brown, or I'm trying to think of somebody else, those one instances, it is really important to hold them accountable and still also give people the space to make mistakes, because we all make mistakes at the end of the day.
right.
And if it's not a question of their character, well, it kind of is a question of the character to you if they're talking
Right.
about if you don't got AIDS, make some noise, whatever. Like, but then I was watching.
Crazy.
It's so funny. I was watching a Boosie interview. I've been watching like interviews of Boosie all weekend. I don't know why.
Not Boosie.
He's so funny, but he was saying something about like people, like people. He was kind of making excuses for the baby in a way.
Mm,
But he was saying like, you hear like when you go to the club, the DJs say stuff like that all the time, and everybody go crazy. So I don't know, but yeah, holding them accountable, giving people room to make mistakes,
mm.
and be able like you know, Chris Brown was able to make his mistake, and he still have a very successful career. Good for him. Just don't make sure they don't do it again, because that's what accountability calls through.
I think that's the thing, but I think so then when we talk about things like council culture and holding them accountable, once we hold them accountable and they acknowledge that they did wrong, they do whatever it is they need to do to fix it. We can consistently, after that point, be in a comment saying, "Remember when you said this?
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's
remember
what I
when you
mean.
said that?" Because it's so. Do you know the rapper Tokyo Jets?
Hmm. What you
It
do?
was like a girl. It was like a month. I want to say it was fresh after George Floyd was murdered,
Hmm.
and she was on her IG story, wrestling with like one of
Oh,
her
I saw that.
employees, and she choked him. And while she was choking him, they were play fighting, and she said, "I'm a George Floyd your ass."
Yeah, I remember that. That
That ain't
I was
nothing. That ain't
like,
nothing we play
what?
about.
Yeah,
That ain't nothing we play about. That's never going to be a joke, a point
I
of
forgot about that.
joking,
Right.
you know. But it's
Hmm.
like she people stopped booking her for stuff because she had like several like appearances and hostings to do. People stopped booking her. They dropped her from all that stuff. Her label took a pause on releasing a lot of her music, and so then that just like she deleted everything off her social media, and then she came out with an apology. But it's like she knew that
She
she
was
messed
on.
up,
Yeah.
and so I think that things like that we just because the same way I expect you to hold me accountable. Like if I say some off the wall stuff to you, you'll tell me, Dominique,
Hmm.
like that wasn't
Right.
it.
Right.
You shouldn't have said that.
Right.
And I think that that's what we all need. I think that, a lot of times we tend to give celebrities passes, and we just got
Yeah.
to stop doing that. And council culture doesn't mean forgetting about it, and it means holding them accountable.
Hmm.
And so then that way they can reference that and be like, I said this before, and this wasn't really good. It offended a lot of people. So then they're
Right.
cautious moving forward.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think my, I think the, I guess the confusion I had with cancel culture is like, is they cancel forever, or is they just canceled
Mm, right.
until they know they did something wrong, and apologize and all that.
Right. Typically, I think historically, it's been they're canceled until we done being mad.
Okay, makes
Then
sense.
once we're not mad no more, we like, all right, you cool now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Very.
Mm-mm. I think that it definitely makes me a lot more cautious of the things that I say,
Mm,
and whether or not they can be offensive. I highly encourage, any celebrity that's watching our podcast because I feel it in my spirit. Um, any celebrity that's watching our podcast, to just be mindful of the things that you say because another thing that we talked about in class is whether or not celebrities sign up to be role models and should we hold them accountable for being a bad influence on our kids. They didn't sign no contract to say I Selena Gomez
mm.
vow to be a positive role model. They just signed a contract saying that they were going to do some things that they love. But I think
Right.
that they should also acknowledge how much power and influence that they have. Um,
Especially,
yes,
especially with
especially in the
how
lives of our
strong like
kids.
social media and
Right,
technology, like you kind of just have to take that role on.
right. And so I just think I highly encourage, whoever you are, Barack Obama, to
Shut up.
to just be, cautious of the words you say, and life and death being in the power of your tongue is not a lie. Just
Yeah.
continuing to be cautious about what you say and the communities that you can offend, and doing what you can to educate yourself. I don't even think we've really answered. Can we separate the art from the artist? It's just really a difficult a difficult thing to assess,
It's a
and it's
case by
really
case.
just right.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, we're figuring out life just like a lot of these celebrities. We just get to do it privately.
yeah.
So, yeah. But this has been another great, thought provoking,
Ooh.
conversational
Eesh.
episode of On the DL with Dom and Lex. And remember that whatever you do, continue to walk in your truth, even if it's on a DL. Bye, y'all.